All right, here we go, everyone. Shalom and welcome. Part 2, Enoch, Chapter 7. We went over the first part up to Chapter 7, I believe, earlier, and now let's go over the rest of it. Now, unlike a lot of sermons and a lot of things, I'm just basically going to read this and we're just going to go over it. Where a lot of things you kind of dissect or take out or put in the thought of what's happening there, right? Now, not opposed to where people go and cherry pick. I've seen a lot of times lately that people take this and take that and turn it into 5 resurrections and 3 things and 14 raptures. But anyway, that's why we need to read and study to prove ourselves worthy. And all them together went and took wives for themselves, each choosing one for himself. And they began to go into them and defile themselves with sex with them. Who are we talking about? We're talking about the angels, the fallen, the ones who came down, right? We went over that in the first part. If you didn't see that, watch part 1. That they come down and they took these women. So there's a lot into understanding the scripture, because a lot of times we read one verse again and we say, okay, well, I ain't going to have a wife in heaven, or I ain't going to have kids, or I ain't going to do this, or I ain't going to do that, or you can't do that. And all these, again, things that are said from one verse, taken out of context and turned into something. But this obviously is saying that angels fallen, it wasn't just because they was fallen that they could have sex, right? So these angels obviously took women and had sex and had children with them. So there is a seed. There is you see what I'm getting at? I know a lot of people take that one verse and say, well, look, we don't have any kids, or you can't have kids, or there's not going to be a family. But we have to understand Yahweh doesn't change. If Yahweh made Adam and Eve and not Steve, get it? If he made Adam and Eve and he made them to have and be fruitful and multiply, and the other animals, it only makes sense that what he made would probably continue in perfection. Let's go on. And Noah was 500 years old, and Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, that the sons of God saw the daughters of men, that they were fair, and they took them wives of all which they chose. This is verifying what the Bible says, because a lot of people say, well, the book of Enoch don't fit with the Bible, or the book of this and the book of Jubilees, all these things that people say. But this is confirming exactly what we read. It's just going more into detail somewhat, right? It's letting us know that, yeah, by the way, angels by name that was fallen, that chose to do this, they didn't just, they chose to make a decision, a conscious decision to do these things. And even before they did them, they knew there was going to be something to pay. They even said so, right? In part 1, we went over that. And Yahweh said, my spirit shall not always strive with men, for that he is also flesh. Yet his days shall be 120 years. Our best of on best is 120 years. I know there's a lot of other teachings and a lot of other things, a lot of this and that and the other. But Yahweh himself said, let's just read it again. And Yahweh said, my Ruach, my spirit, shall not always strive with man. What does that mean, strive? The spirit is always trying to get us to do the right thing. The flesh wants to do whatever. The spirit, the soul knows it's eternal, right? The soul knows I'm eternal. Whatever you do, I'm going to pay for. Whatever you put me through, I'm going to pay for all eternity. The flesh, in a sense, I don't think really cares. The flesh is like, I'm going back to the dirt, which came from. Don't matter. I ain't going to be here long. Let's enjoy it. Let's have fun. So we know through scriptures that war that goes on. But Yahweh himself says, for that he also is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years. So the whole point is we have a choice to make. I wasn't trying to get too much into that, but we do have a choice to make. Either we choose Yahweh and we choose what Yahweh says, or we don't listen to anything and do what we want, or listen kind of sort of and do what we want, or as we see with the angels. I think a lot of people got misconception of angels and what they are and how they can't do wrong. And we see clearly they even have a thinking ability. They even have a way of doing wrong, of sinning. Look at Lucifer, right? I think a lot of times we look at angels as they was made like a robot and they are like robots, and but obviously they can disobey just like everybody else. There were giants in the earth in those days, and also after that, when the sons of God is reference to these fallen angels, or these and the angels that came down, the sons of God, came into the daughters of men, and they had children to them. I mean, it's pretty clear that angels can have children. And this is Genesis, right? And I'm just reading this because this coincides with this, and it's actually in the book here. The sons became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown. And Elohim saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination and the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. This is in Genesis. Ain't that sad? In Genesis, and this is the seventh from Adam, 7 men from Adam, Enoch. I mean, come on. And it repented Yahweh that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. I think a lot of times we don't understand Yahweh himself. We grieve when we see our child hurt. We grieve when we see our spouse hurt. We grieve when we see our parents. We grieve all these things. But for some reason, the creator of all, when we do bad, dumb things, we don't realize we hurt him. If we would understand the book, the scriptures, how Yahweh actually is, instead of walking about talking about he's love, he's love, he's love, he's love. Yeah, but that's one attribute. That's one thing. Hopefully your daddy and your mama loved you. Hopefully your spouse loves you. But I'm sure they don't want to see you in bed with 20 people. None of them. I'd hope not. You see what I'm saying? But this is what we do if we're not careful with religion, with Mardi Gras, with parades, with idols, with even the cross. If you're not careful, people got these crosses around their neck. And it's amazing. So does Hollywood. Let's go on. And the angels taught them charms and spells and the cutting of roots, and made them acquainted with plants. So Yahweh says, here's everything to eat. Here's all the herbs. Here's all these green things. Here's what you eat. Now the angels come and tried to turn it into what? Spells. See what we get here? So a lot of people are afraid of herbs and different things because they think it's a part of witchcraft, which if it's turned into a spell, a voodoo, of these type of things, then Yahweh forgive us, then yes. But sadly, a lot of so-called Christians, a lot of so-called believers have no problem watching Harry Potter. They have no problem watching people perform magic and all that. But yet we see that Yahweh is not pleased with that. Let's go on. And the women became pregnant, and they bare large giants, whom height was 3,000 cubits. Wow. So what we have here is we see the giants came from the angels. Now we have reference of angels stood on the land and stood on the sea. So obviously some of these angels are pretty big. They're pretty good size. They're pretty good. Now you notice it says that they took wives of whomever. Now that doesn't mean it Some of them didn't die. It doesn't mean that this and that and the other didn't happen. It doesn't mean they didn't get hurt. It says what it says. The giants consumed all the work and toil of men. And when men could no longer sustain them, the giants turned against them and devoured mankind. So the giants come in, basically took over everything, devoured everything, mucked up everything, and then started with man himself. Doesn't that sound like what the world does? Doesn't that sound like, oh, well, we're going to fix your climate change. We're going to fix your this. We're going to fix. And at the same time, they're the ones destroying it. Dumping all their trash in the ocean. Dumping all their oil in the ocean. Dumping all the garbage wherever they may. But we're going to help you. Doesn't that sound like what's going on? We're here to help you. We're going to, let's go on. And they began to sin against the birds and the beasts and the reptiles and the fish, and to devour one another's flesh and drink the blood. I have something to submit to you right here. If Adam and Eve didn't know the commandments, all 613, 614, 613 of them, then why would this be a bad thing? If the angels didn't know the Torah, then drinking blood would be, okay, guys, don't do that. It wouldn't be counted to them, imputed to them as sin. It couldn't be. You don't take your child outside and he starts throwing rocks and you say, well, that's a terrible thing to do. It's only when he throws rocks at your car, at the window, at the house, at another person that you say that is a no-no. You can throw rocks perhaps at the tree. You can throw rocks at this. You can just throw rocks, see how far you can chunk them. You can skip them across the lake. But that, my friend, is a no-no. He doesn't know any better, supposedly. But you're sure not going to hurt him, I hope, or do anything unless he has the knowledge to know better. So how would these not know? You see what I'm submitting to you? I'm saying they all knew the instructions. Everyone had the Torah, angels included. They did. How would they not know they was going to sin? How did we go to part 1 and they said we're going to be a grievous sin? Ain't that what they said? We're going to do a grievous sin. How would they know that? How would they know that was even a sin? How would they know that if they didn't have the Torah? Exactly, right? They had to know what sin was. They had to realize that was a no-no. Let's go on. Then the earth laid accusation against the lawless. The lawless ones, the earth itself. Again, I don't think we realize what we live upon. We're told all this nonsense, all this craziness, but we live upon a foundation that was made by Yahweh. And this very foundation cried out with the blood. Remember Cain and Abel? It cried out. The things that he had made, he said he's a living Elohim. And too many times we're worried about all the dead stuff. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and taught them about metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets and ornaments and the use of anatomy and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of precious stones and all coloring and dyes. It's amazing. It wasn't the creator. It wasn't a good angel. It wasn't someone that told us these things. And is this any good for anybody? I mean, honestly, has any of this really helped anybody? Oh, it helped me get my date. Yeah, and then they turned into a divorce because, you see what I'm saying? When you make up a clown suit and there's something other than a clown there, what gives? So I would submit a lot of these people, a lot of things that we have been showed are not for our benefit. It seems like it. The women put all the makeup on, and people wear makeup, and we have filters, and oh, I got a blotch right there. I put a little bit of this on it, and TV and Hollywood, and everybody looks so perfect. But then you see them in person, you're like, wow, that's got some scars and wrinkles and this, but that's what we are. Why be deceiving? I think some of the most beautiful women on this earth are the ones that are just pure natural women. You see them and they're the same today, yesterday, and tomorrow. They're the same, right? This is Totus and the fallen ones. But this also shows me, too, how many teachers, how many people want to tell lies and heresies and hypocritical things because there's something about teaching somebody, right? There's something about giving that message. But if it ain't a true message, it's a hurtful message. If it's not the pure message, it's not even from Yahweh. Let's go on. And there were great impurities. They turned away from Elohim and committed fornication, and they were led astray because, why? And became corrupt in all their ways. These things, if we're not careful, leads us away from the Creator. These things lead us far away. And it may not seem like it. Vanity doesn't seem like, okay, I'll put a little splotch on my splotch there and everything. I'll put a little bit of this on my birthmark here. I'll put a little bit of this on that there. But where does that lead to? If we're not careful, there's never enough. Oh, I got a pimple over here. Oh, I got this. And before you know it, it's a full clown suit. Rubber nose and all, right? Honk, honk. But no, I mean, if we're not careful, all this leads into something that isn't good. You ever seen an alcoholic who started out saying, yeah, that's all I'm ever going to do with my life is be a drunk? All I'm ever going to do is be an addict to drugs? No, usually it starts out as I'm going to make some money. I'm broke. I'm poor. I can make X amount of money. I can get this. And when that cash is in your hands, come on, folks, let's be realistic. Let's stop being churchianity and churchianics. Oh, well, you know, with that, yeah, you got a big old wad of money in your hand and you're 18, 19 years old. You think you did something. Doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter where it came from. It doesn't matter what. It's your money. It's your car. It's your this. It's your gold chain. And before you know it, all this becomes something that it should have never been. Right? That's what a lot of this leads to. We don't see it. We don't want to see it turn into that. And sadly, it's not until it's drastically terrible that the alcoholic is not an alcoholic, but everybody knows he is. The drug addict he never did the drugs. It was only for money. It was only for the help. It was only for this. It was only for that. Sadajaya taught the casting of spells. To me, I want to find the root of things. Yud-Hey-Vav-Hey, Yahweh. What's the Bible say about Yahweh? It says he's the creator. It says he's the Father. He's the one who gave us the law, the Torah, the instructions. If we disobey the Father, then what are we going to get? Repercussions. Now, when we go into these things, we got to understand, where does the rabbit in the hat come from? Where does the magical spells, no matter how entertaining whoever it may be, and what they're doing, and what jet disappears, and what bus disappears, and what it seems to be, and you're looking for the mirrors, and you're looking for the smoke, and you're looking for, how did that really happen? I know that can't be true. How did that? If we're not careful, it pulls us away from what Yahweh wants us to be a part of. See, there's some things that we have to understand. I said all that to say, where did it come from? Where did we get Harry Potter? Where did we get these? The root of the evil is what I'm saying. It can seem like, oh, we're going out to do trick or treat. Oh, we're going out to do this. Oh, we're going to go out and do that. And it may seem like the funnest time ever. But according to Yahweh, it's not. and according to his word, it's going to lead us astray. Even if it doesn't that day. But even on that day, if we're not doing what he says to do, then we're already led astray. Make sense? Let's go on. Taught the casting of spells and root cuttings. Arminius taught the counting spells that release from spells, right? So there's different types of things there of just waving a wand and how to release the spells. Barnagel taught astrology. Kerpiel taught the constellations, the portals. Now, this is the problem we come to, because if this has been taught other than Yahweh and his instructions, which it's very hard to find a lot of this in the instructions. So if this was taught by a fallen one instead of the creator, can we use that for our calendar? Can we use these things that the fallen taught men? I'm just throwing it in there. Can we use these? Is that okay with Yahweh? So Copiel taught the constellations. Iskiel, the knowledge of the clouds. Aquiel, the signs of the earth. Now, if we go with the feast days, we pretty much know what's happening, right? We pretty much know Passover is the beginning of the year. We pretty much know unleavened bread. We pretty much know it's the seventh month. We know atonement. We know kind of what's going on with the earth. Isn't that enough? Do we need to be taught everything with everything? Shamaziah, the signs of the sun, and Shariel, the course of the moon. And as men perished, they cried, and their cry went up to heaven. So men are dying, men are perishing. Obviously, it's not in a good way. It's not a good thing, right? They're not falling asleep and ending up in the arms of Abraham, so to speak. And then Michael, Uriel, Raphael, and Gabriel looked down from heaven and saw much blood being shed on the earth, and all lawlessness being done on the earth. Again, it can't be accounted as lawlessness if nobody knew the law. If nobody had the Torah, it can't be counted as anything. So obviously, the instructions had been given, had been handed out, if you will. It had been given, probably orally, because probably at this time we had a better noodle than we do today, so to speak, right? Our brains and our way of thinking wasn't so corrupted yet like it is today and like we see here. And they said to each other, let the cries from the destruction of earth ascend up into the gates of heaven. And now to you, the holy ones of heaven, the souls of men make their petition, saying, bring our cause before the Most High. Now, I'm trying not to expand a whole lot, but it seems like there is a lot to expand on here. People believe that when you die, you're falling asleep, and there's verses that you can kind of put together to make that seem like what's happened. But there's also these verses that say that men and their souls are petitioning the Most High. In Revelation, all these souls are under the throne. When, oh, when, Yahweh, oh, when, Yahweh, oh, when, Yahweh, will you avenge our souls? Who are these people? They're obviously not sleeping. I would submit to you that these are the souls of people that's perished from evil hands, evil works, evil things. Say you eat something and it poisons your body and you die, whether it's a year, 10 years, or whatever it may be. You eat red dye number 3, red dye number 7, and eventually it kills you. Would that not be an evil thing? Would that not be, especially if you come to the knowledge of all this, you come before Yahweh, you're judged, you're fine. Now what? Now your soul is saying, hey, I only lived 40 years on that earth. I could have had 120, but they poisoned me. Would we not? Is that not righteousness? Is that not justice? Sounds like it to me, right? Let's go on. And they said on the Lord of ages, Lord of lords, God of gods, King of kings, and God of all the ages, the throne of your glory endures through all generations of all the ages, and your name, holy and glorious and blessed to all the ages. So they're speaking. They're not sleeping. They're not laying in the dirt talking up to the Shelly M. They're speaking. They obviously have a knowledge here, right? Now, 1 Timothy 6:15, which in the times he shall show who to be is blessed. What? Who's going to be blessed and who ain't, right? And only Publius, the King of kings and the Lord of lords, who only hath immortality, dwelling in the light which no man can approach. So this flesh cannot approach the King of Kings. It cannot approach Yahweh. We have to be careful when I'm coming boldly to the throne and all these things. Well, no, you're not. We have to humble ourselves. We have to realize who we are before Yahweh, our Creator, and approach under. Notice it says under, right? Under that throne. And this is 1 Timothy 6:15. It's just reference into what Enoch's having go on here, right? No one has seen, nor one has seen whom his honor, his power is everlasting, so be it. So at this time, what I believe it's saying is we come under the throne of Yahweh. Our souls, your soul is eternal. You don't go to sleep. Your soul is forever working, right? You dream, you wake up out of nowhere, you hear something, you start praying, you start crying. Your soul, your body don't care. It'll lay there all day and night. The soul is the one that says, let's get up and let's serve Yahweh. Let's go on. You have made all things, and you have been given power of all things, and all things are revealed upon your sight. And you see all things, and nothing can hide itself from you. Look at what Azazel has done, who had taught all unrighteousness on this earth, and revealed the eternal secrets which you made and kept in heaven, which men were striving to learn. And Samajah, who taught spells, to whom you gave authority to rule over his associates. And they have gone to the daughters of men on the earth, and have had sex with the women, and have defiled themselves, and revealed unto them all kinds of sins. Terrible things, right? They've come down and taken our women, our life, and just mucked it all up. And where was the men that said no? Notice that's one thing we don't see here. We don't see no Maccabees. We don't see no guys with hammers. We don't see people taking the swords and thrusting it through the dark angels, if you will. It's all like, hey, let's learn more of this nonsense. It wasn't until they perished, right? It wasn't until they're perishing that they realized that is a bad thing. Let's go on. Then there were giants in the earth in all the days. Now, this is Genesis 6:4. Again, referencing back and forth what's going on. In those days and after that, where the sons of God came into the daughters of men, and they had children to them. The same became mighty men which were of old, new, and men of valor. How was they of old? Because they was angels, right? Let's go on. And the women have borne giants, and the whole earth has thereby been filled with blood and unrighteousness. And again, I got to throw it in there. Why didn't the women stop it? Why did the women have no power? Did they remove all the head covering? What woman? We don't see one woman saying no, stop, don't, or one husband or one guy or somebody saying, it's almost like they was so intrigued with this that they just went with it. But that's not really an amazing thing because we see the same thing today, right? We see the same stuff going on today that we're so intrigued with spells and forecasts and all these other things that we're so worried about what's happening with that. It seems to captivate many. And Elohim saw that the unrighteousness of man was so great upon the earth, and that every imagination and the thoughts of his heart. I love that when people say, he knows my heart. Yes, he does, and it's a wicked, hateful, evil thing, right? And notice this is scripture. This is Genesis 6 and 5. Every imagination, that's why I can say what I just said. Every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was evil. So instead of saying, gee, we're displeasing the Creator. Gee, this is going wrong. Gee, this looks terrible. Gee, all of our women are being taken and made into harlots. And obviously, everybody was liking it. So what about today? We let all this stuff get by us. We let all this stuff go away. How many people stand up and say, not in my school, not in my house, not in my town, not in my place, not in my place of worship? Have we ever seen one person get up and say, hey, Steve can't marry John? No, let's accept that garbage. Let's go on. And it repented Yahweh that he had made man on the earth, and it grieved him at his heart. That's terrible, folks. That's terrible. And if it did it then, what about today? What are we going through? What are we doing to the Creator today? The world, what are they making Yahweh think of his creation today? Let's go on. And now behold, the souls of those who have died are crying out and making their petition to the gates of heaven. And their laminate was ascended and cannot cease because of the lawless deeds which are done on the earth. This tells us right here, them souls are crying out. They're not laying in no grave. They're not laying around waiting for resurrection. They're not waiting for some rapture. The souls are crying out back then. Imagine today. Imagine the things that they're seeing today. Imagine the things that they're talking about today. If this happened back then, and look what's going on today. Let's go on. And you know all things before they come to pass, and you see these things, and you have permitted them, and say nothing to us about these things. What are we to do with them about these things? Doesn't that sound like our prayer? You ever lost someone and they died of cancer, they died of some disease, or they died of something? You're like, what's up with this? How come this happened? Why did they go? How come this is going on? Well, I don't understand it. What's happening here? You see, is that the soul crying out? Is that the soul saying, hey, I need some help here? Is that the soul saying righteousness and trustworthiness? But we know it's all going to come out in the end, right? But we want it today, right? We want these people judged today. But praise Yahweh, it doesn't work like that, because at any time we was doing these stupid things, sinful things, maybe I should say, the stupid sinful things, we didn't want to be cut off for breaking the Sabbath. We didn't want to be cut off for doing this. We didn't want to be cut off for doing that. We'll do one more chapter and then we'll shut it down for now. Then said the Most High, the great and holy one, Uriel, go to the son of Lamech. Say to him, go to Noah and tell him in the name, hide yourself, and reveal to him that the end that is approaching, that the whole earth will be destroyed. And a flood is about to come on the whole earth and will destroy everything on it. And now instruct him as to what he must do to escape, that his offspring may be preserved for all generations of the world. We have reference Genesis 6 and 13. And again, Yahweh said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot and cast him into the darkness and split upon him the desert. which is in Deliel, and cast him in. And again Yahweh said to Raphael, bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into darkness, and split open the desert which is in Deliel, and cast him in. And I've been saying this before, that, people talk about CERN and talk about this and talk about that. It doesn't matter. What matters is when Yahweh says to do this and not to do that. But it also tells us where he was. And fill the hole by covering him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him live there forever, and cover his face that he may not see the light. And on the day of the great judgment he shall be hurled into the fire. Sounds like he's already been judged, right? Or will we be judging these angels? And heal the earth which the angels have ruined, and proclaim the healing of the earth. For I will restore the earth and heal the plague, that not all the children of men may perish through all the secret things that the watchers have disclosed and have taught their sons. The whole earth has been corrupted through the works that were taught by Azazel. To him ascribe all sin. To whom? Does that say Lucifer? You ever wonder why on Passover they had Azazel, the goat? Kind of explains things a little better, doesn't it? Kind of explains to us what's going on. Kind of tells us what's happening. To Gabriel said the Lord, proceed against the bastards and the reprobates, and against the children of fornication, and destroy the children of fornication and the children of the watchers. Cause them to go against one another, that they may destroy each other in battle. Shorten their days. Genesis 6 and 7 reference. No request that the watchers, their fathers, make of you shall be granted them on their behalf, for they hope to live an eternal life, and that each one of them will live 500 years. And Yahweh said to Michael, go bind Shemaziah and his team, who have associated with women and defiled themselves in all their uncleanliness, when their sins have slain one another, or when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones. Bind them fast for 70 generations under the heels of the earth, until the day of the communication of their judgment, and until the eternal judgment is accomplished. 70 generations, 500 years, 3,500 years. In those days they shall be led off to the abyss of fire, and to the torment, and to the prison in which they shall be confined forever. Then Shemaziah shall be burnt up with the condemned, and they will be destroyed, having been bound together with them to the end of all generations. Destroy all the spirits of the lust of the children of watchers, because they have wronged mankind. Destroy all wrong from the face of the earth, and let every evil work come to an end, and let the earth be planted with righteousness, the plant of righteousness and truth appear, and it shall prove a blessing. The works of the righteousness and truth shall be planted in the truth, and joy forevermore. Genesis 6 and 7 reference. And then shall all righteousness survive, and shall live until they beget thousands of children, and all the days of the youth and their old age they shall complete in peace. Genesis 8 and 22, Genesis 9 and 1 references. And then shall the whole earth be untilled in righteousness, and shall be planted with trees, and be full of blessing. and all the desirable trees shall be planted on it, and they shall plant vines on it. And the vine which they plant shall yield fruit in abundance. And as for all the seed which is sown, each measurement of it shall bear 1,000, and each measurement of olive shall yield 10 presses of oil. We ain't seen that yet, right? I got a pear tree, and it puts a lot of pears out, but a lot of these trees don't put out that much. You shall cleanse the earth from all oppression, and from all unrighteousness, and from all sin, and from all godlessness, and all uncleanliness that is brought on the earth you shall destroy from off the earth. All the children of men shall become righteous, and all nations shall offer admiration and shall praise me. And all shall worship me, and the earth shall be cleansed from all defilement, and from all sin, and from all punishment, and from all torment. And I will never again send another flood from this generation to all generations forever. That was chapter 10. We'll start off again at chapter 11. There's so much here that we can see, I believe, of where we go wrong, where we have went wrong. That we can see that teaching our children, although it may not seem bad to do October, it may not seem bad to go and celebrate, it may not seem bad to go to parades, but according to the scriptures, it does. According to the scriptures, it's not pleasing. It's accounted and imputed to us as sin. So let's go over it again. Let's keep going over it and get into some more nitty gritty. Until next time, may Yahweh bless you. May his kindness shine upon you, and may he grant you shalom. Shalom. Thank you for watching. Yahweh bless you all.